Hello, everyone. Whole Heart Wiley here. Thanks for tuning in. Today, I would like to talk about 5 things that I am intending to avoid this time around on my healing and transformation journey. And I feel like these things will also be helpful to many of you. As I've mentioned in previous videos, I started my healing and transformation journey almost 15 years ago. And in that time, I have done many different types of healing modalities. And also, in my professional capacity, I've helped many others on their healing and transformation journey. And these are the 5 things I think that most often hold people back. So we're going to jump right in. All right. Number 1, I have my list here. So if I'm looking down, the first one is that there is the knowing doing gap. So many of us have researched healing, or we've consumed content about healing, which we're doing now, uh, or we have read books or worked with different providers, and we have obtained information about how we might go about healing. But there are many paths, and there are many different choices and options that we can choose from. And so sometimes we get stuck in a place of intellectualizing our healing, where we feel stuck or stifled because we have so much information, but we're not actually putting that information into practice. And that's where the knowing doing gap comes in, is that we know a lot about healing, or we've read a lot, or we've worked with providers in the past, but we've never really been able to move it more into an embodiment practice of actually doing the work of healing. And sometimes viewing it as work, I don't think is supportive for many people. But it is a commitment to ourselves that we're making. And so inevitably there will be work, if you will, or effort that is required for us to really meet ourselves, get to know ourselves, and to really be able to connect with ourselves enough to understand what is going on for us and what might be driving some of our choices, our beliefs, our thoughts, and our behaviors. So I would avoid that. I would avoid the knowing doing gap. I would start small, and I would just take action and start doing some of the things and see how you feel. All right, second thing, and I have talked about this, is overcomplicating the process. As I mentioned, with so many choices, so many options, so many paths you can take towards healing, sometimes it feels really overwhelming once we start trying to determine what we're going to be doing or how we're going to be doing it. And when we actually sit down to do the journaling exercises, or to do the embodiment practices, or to quiet our minds, or to just even sit with ourselves, we just overcomplicate it. And we think that there's some magic that's supposed to be happening, or that we must not be doing something right because it feels unfamiliar to us in some way. But the truth of it is just like any other skill set that we learn, the more we practice, the easier it gets, the more natural it becomes to us. And so in order to uncomplicate things, or to simplify things for myself, I oftentimes just decide that I'm just going to do it, and I'm going to show up, and I make a commitment to myself, and I consistently do that practice again and again and again until it feels familiar, until it feels more comfortable. And then you can start stacking practices. But I certainly would start small, and I would not overcomplicate it. And when you find yourself overcomplicating something, there's a thought pattern or a belief pattern there that's driving that. And so there'd be really good feedback in there for you about some things, some core limiting stories or beliefs that you have that potentially need to be shifted. Okay, third thing is looking for answers outside of ourselves. Or sometimes it's not even looking for the answers, but it's more looking for validation outside of ourselves that we're doing something correctly or that it's working. Um, we have often found it hard to trust ourselves. because we are disconnected from self. And so we don't trust our own inner signaling or our intuition, if you'll call it that, about what would be most supportive for us, or what feels most helpful for us, or what actually feels like it's working the best. No one outside of you can tell you what's going to work for you. They can give you options, suggestions, things that have worked for them or others in the past, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to work for you. And so I would just really encourage you, when you find yourself looking outside of you for answers, especially when we're consuming a lot of content, really that can be an avoidance strategy from actually being with ourselves and sitting down and actually doing the practices that are going to be most supportive for us. And so whenever I'm looking outside of myself for any kind of validation, I will sit down with my journal and I will start journaling out. Because often what I will find is that the things that I never received in childhood, which one of those things is validation, I'm always looking outside of myself for others to give to me. And the truth is that no one can give you what must come from within. And so if we have a skill set where we have practiced validating, accepting, approving, or loving ourselves, then we no longer need to look for it outside of ourselves. And honestly, if you can get to that point, that is true freedom. But it will take practice and consistency, because even when we make a lot of headway in our journey, oftentimes we will backslide, and it's to be expected. But we just keep coming back to our core practices, and we just always look for signposts, if you will, of things that might be holding us back. And then we can start looking at our beliefs, our feelings, and our behaviors as a way to determine maybe where there is some work that needs to be done with limiting beliefs or core stories. The fourth thing is focusing on the destination, not the journey. We kind of resist the process in this way when we're very fixated on getting to a destination or an outcome. And in that, then we're not present really for the moment to moment practice that will allow us to move towards that goalpost. And the truth is that we never get there. There is really no destination in healing work, in transformation work. I mean, we're always going to be up leveling, but the work continues. No matter how much work we do, we're still going to have life, ebbing and flowing. And so things are going to be happening in our outer reality that are going to be triggering us in some way, or bringing up things from our past that, potentially we've worked on and healed in the past. But we still have to show up, and we have to be with whatever is in front of us. And sometimes that can be very frustrating for people. But I personally feel like anytime something's repetitively coming up, it's really just giving us feedback about, again, those core limiting beliefs and stories that are preventing us from reaching our fullest potential for healing. And that's valuable. And so if we can meet ourselves with curiosity instead of judgment, there's actually a lot of value in that. And I believe healing happens in a spiral. That's something one of my mentors told me, and I feel like it really resonated, where things are going to come back around time and time again. But the goal is that each time it comes up, we're meeting it in a more present and aware way. We're not as reactive or triggered, and we're able to navigate it or move through it far more easily each time it presents itself. And really, that's true transformation. So be gentle with yourself and try not to get ahead of yourself, focusing on getting to any specific destination. Okay, the fifth thing is that believing it's hard, or believing it will take a long time, or trying to do too much in a short period of time in order to expedite the process. Part of this for me was having a core story around just generally things being difficult in my life, because that had been my 3D lived experience. And so when I came into my healing and transformation journey, Anytime that I felt like I was stagnating, or if something was particularly triggering for me, or if I had a big reaction to something that I wasn't able to self-soothe myself or manage, and I reacted from an old version of myself, I would get really discouraged. And I think it really held me back. I think we have to look at everything as an opportunity for learning and an opportunity for growth. And instead of judging myself or being critical with myself, I have really shifted into more of that curiosity mindset, meeting myself with compassion, and being able to just be present for whatever it is and show myself kindness. You know, as I work with others, in my professional capacity, I always meet people with kindness and curiosity and non-judgment. But sometimes when it would come to my own healing, that was really challenging for me. And that goes back to having an inner critical voice. And that is usually downloaded in childhood from a significant figure in our childhood. Because in childhood, I was not met with kindness or curiosity or non judgment, even well-meaning as my parents were. So I think that's something we have to retrain ourselves to do, and it can take time. And so be patient with yourself, and just recognize that anytime your internal dialogue is negative or critical or unkind, again, there's feedback in that, and it can help you propel you forward on your journey if you allow it. The last thing I just want to say, this is more of a bonus, but the most significant healing I ever had was actually in community. I had done a lot of individual healing work, and I had had success in that and had made some major improvements in my life. However, it wasn't until I joined a healing and wellness community, where I had a safe place to be seen and to be validated, meaning I was validating myself, but others were there being able to validate my experience. That was when I made quantum leaps in my healing journey. And so I really would encourage you, if you're able to get connected to a healing community or others on a similar journey, which we can do that through YouTube here, if, having a community that's supportive, um, to connect with others that are also on this journey. But it is very, very important. And oftentimes when we have a lot of shame from our childhood, it makes us want to conceal or hide things about ourselves. And so it feels very vulnerable to work with a group or work in community. And I myself had resisted that for many, many years because I just didn't think it would be helpful to me. But I did find that that's where I made the most strides, because I was able to show up in authenticity, not as a whole and healed person at that time, but as somebody who was deeply suffering and struggling. And to be honest about my experience, to be honest about my thoughts and my feelings, and to be supported in that, and embraced with kindness, love, comfort. Um, you know, Having others see and validate our experience, or to provide a safe container for us to heal, can be incredibly powerful. So I hope those things are helpful for you. These are things I'm certainly going to be keeping in mind on my own journey as I move forward. But I always try and remind myself that it's really micro shifts. It's just being able to start small and to commit to one thing or maybe two things that we're going to be doing. And the healing process really does start with self-inquiry, and self-awareness. And so we talked about this in previous videos, where the first and primary relationship is always to self. And so that's where we're going to start. And in the next video, I'm going to be talking to you guys about a self-inventory and an integrity checklist, and kind of how we jump off on a healing journey so we kind of know where we are, and then we know where we want to go. So thank you for tuning in today. I hope this was helpful for you. If you'd like to comment below, letting me know which one of these roadblocks you've experienced or that you would like to avoid, please do so. All right, take care.